snorted or swallowed or inhaled as other drugs, it is a drug nonetheless. It excites, then pacifies, and facilitates pacification by individuals informed by the propaganda of the Western state mind. The visible signs, however, of being high on individualistic spiritualism are like other nullifying drugs, whether stimulants or depressants, are acceptable, even applauded by Western society. For every thought and action signals a deep internalization of defeat. For every thought and action signals a deeper internalization of defeat. Karl Marx once said of his own that religion is the opiate of the masses. No credible Western scholar has been able to successfully refute this statement. He said this because he knew the mind of Europe as well, and he knew what European culture does to feeling human minds. That mind, the European mind, has infected us aggressively, violently, relentlessly with their conscious intent. We have acted, although most reacted against this assault on our being with rebellion. And times we willfully submitted. There have always been some of us who are only rebelled and some who only surrendered. But now, with a doggedly racist, thoroughly anti-African social arena, and with the almost completed destruction of our community, and family infrastructures, we have come to mostly react passively in a willful submission, pretending that sub-integration and trinkets reflect true power. Because some people see power as gold rings and bracelets and nice cars and nice leather sofa. That's not power. Power is self-determination. We self-determine how we live, how our children live, how our children are educated, our economic system. Self-determination. Self-determination is not trinkets. We pretend we are like them, these lesser gods who define us and correct us. And because of this easy access to acceptability, if you're in the church, because you're non-threatening, and let me say, do you remember Dylan Roof? Dylan Roof marched into a church in South Carolina. He sat down with the black people because it's a black church. They didn't stop me coming in because they thought that, oh, maybe there's a guy, one nice white guy, he's probably Jesus. And he sat down with them, he prayed with them, and then he pulled out his gun and killed them all at point blank range. So we think that we're in a church, we're safe in a church. Do you know how many churches have been burnt down? Christian churches have been burnt down in the USA? The USA say that they are a Christian nation. But Europeans burned down African churches. The last person I heard got convicted for it, he was the son of the police chief. He burnt down a church in the black community. Because they see a church as at least a black power base, a place where we can be strong. So they'll still burn down churches. But how can the USA say they're a Christian nation when these racists have burnt down hundreds of black churches? You know that? In 1963, remember they bombed the church, the Ku Klux Klan bombed the church and killed 4 little black girls. So a church is not going to hide us from our enemies. This is using history. We must use history and understand history so we don't make the same mistakes. Okay, let me continue. If we listen carefully, we will hear that individualistic spiritualist conversations are always the endless drone of peace without costs. As their pale flower child predecessors who sought inner peace in their supremacist privilege over others, our depoliticalized black butterflies speak as if the reality we exist does not exist. They believe that we can ignore this world because it is a mental creation and therefore somehow not true and worthy of our not worthy spiritual reality. When they say peace as a greeting, it is not race specific. It is not designed as brother and sister. were in the 70s to create a unity and a sense of family among Africans. It is spoken to increase peace among Africans except by chance. They use this greeting with the same, sometimes more meaningful, emotional content to anyone who will respond accordingly, especially smiling white faces. They seek the illusion of peace that hides reality, writes our story out of existence by making the human story one, and turns the world into a colourless, genderless, placid utopia. And again, it's just I don't see colour. And we're all saying we've all got war, we've all got to pay bills, and we all can be unemployed. So they try to make us all the same when one side of this sameness is killing us. Individualistic spiritualism becomes the highly addictive opiate that allows escapists to be their extremely individualistic selves and remains deeply unconcerned about the needs of those who exist outside their limited circles. Designer spiritualism elevates them to a cloud nine of one love, one salvation, one person's free, to be an individual lost in the cosmos, lost in a careless dream without responsibility or end. And this corrupted interpretation of spiritual possession is proudly worn on the sleeves with a smart, childish glee of a boy having just earned a Boy Scout marriage badge. In the end, for these psychologically softened Africans, spiritualism is the highest validator of individualism. Let me repeat that. In the end, for these psychologically softened Africans, spiritualism is the highest validator of individualism. In truth, they are totally entrapped by it in self. Their spiritualism is a little more than a European individualism, custom designed to fit their unique African nightmares. They bask in the propagated overstatement that everything is living and every living thing is a part of the universe and therefore should be treated with unequaled, unqualified respect, forgiveness and forgetfulness and love. They conveniently overlook the universal law of polarity. Everything has its opposite. The rhythm, everything waxes and wanes. They ignore the facts that good must control evil in order to thrive, and that evil is evil, and that evil will overtake good given the opportunity, like their predecessors, who turned their other cheek and lived according to the belief that the meek shall inherit the earth, and also, ironically, like their contemporaries who measure spiritual success by the accumulation of things, like their oversized bling-bling crosses and gilded Bibles, that they do so conspicuously brandishing their front and back car windows. They ignore the historical fact of our genocide at the hands of the manipulative barbarians and love their enemies as if their love of death gives them life. Okay, that was deep. So that's about spirituality, self-serving spirituality. They go into this spirituality to save themselves. It's an individualistic type of religion where as long as they're okay, and they move away from the pain of living in society and fighting society and use religion as a painkiller, as a opiate to take them away from the pain. So you can understand that because people don't like to feel pain. When you feel pain, you want to move away from the pain. But we have to fight. We have to follow our ancestors. We have to learn from history. Going into sort of religious plane, high-level stuff, I think where everybody's the same is not going to stop them or their children being destroyed. We have to look at history. Look what's happening in the streets. Have you seen what's happening in the streets? Since they killed our brother George Floyd, you still see the stories of what these Europeans are doing to people in the streets. All these European police are still doing to our people in the streets. Will they change? They won't change. Only thing we can do, we can change. For our world to change, we cannot rely on others to change our world. We have to change our consciousness, and then we'll change the world around us ourselves. We have to develop an African consciousness. That is the only way the world around us will change. The next chapter is called Thought, Word and Deed. So this is the Afrocentricity Bookman Show, and this is Brother Jegna. We are reading the book called Menticide by Walimu Bomani Baruti, which is a set of chapters about Ma'at and Isfet. So do we know what Ma'at is? Ma'at is a concept of truth, harmony, balance, righteousness, rightness, doing the right thing, integrity. Boom. And Isfet is the opposite side of the coin. It's chaos, harm, murder, death. So we swing between Ma'at and Zia. Put simply, it's kind of good and evil. But Ma'at and Isfet is kind of African culture. And he spoke about the 42 negative confessions there. We know that our brothers, our culture, we had 42 negative confessions called the 42 laws of Ma'at. And in those confessions or principles, it says, I have not killed, I have not murdered, I have not lied, I have not stolen, and things like that. It's where the 10 Commandments came from. Yes, Emonah, greetings, my brother, greetings. So within that, they said, I have not been wrathful or angry except for just cause. So it wasn't just blatant, I have not been angry. It says, I have not been angry unless there's a cause for me being angry. See, the intellect of our ancestors. They also said, I will not utter curses except against evil. So you don't walk around saying, I will not curse anybody. You say, I don't curse anybody unless it's evil, then I will curse. So our ancestors kind of knew. So you must remember, people, African people are something like 300,000 years old. 300,000 years old. That's how far our ancestors go back. And if we're thinking about religion, remember, if we're the first people on the planet Earth and we are created by the Creator, then the Creator is our first ancestor. No other people in the world can say that, by the way, yeah? No other people in the world can say that. So when we look at religion and we've got all these images up of religion, because remember, for 70,000 years, there's only African people on the planet. So God must look like us. So we've got the oldest spiritual tradition. Why are we adopting the tradition of people who are only 7,000 or 8,000 years old according to their own science? The people running the planet are maybe 7,000 or 8,000 years old. But we are following these people. You wonder why the world is in chaos, destruction, wars, the air's poisoned, the sea's poisoned, the water's poisoned. You wonder why? Look who's running the world at the moment. Who is the most powerful nation on earth at the moment, military-wise? And look who's running that country. And then you may understand why the world is in so much chaos. When Obama was on that same throne, he was an African, but his job was to keep the American empire going. If he did anything different, he would have been there. Remember, he was smart enough to win 2 terms. But his job was to keep the American empire going. That was his job. He was president. But why we, who are the oldest people on the planet, are following people is really like us following our children. Because effectively, our children. Remember, these people, they manifested from us in the ice and the snow when we left the African continent. So to watch parents follow their children in life-saving things. We can learn from our children, I do agree, but children cannot teach us economics, cannot teach us medicine. We have to teach them these life-giving traits and behaviors. So that is why the world is, yeah? So we need to understand who we are, or we need to understand who our enemy is. And we need to understand that running away to religion, that's what that chapter is about, is not going to save us. Okay, let me continue. The next chapter is called Thought, Word and Deed. And I've got a quote here by Carter G. Woodson. Carter G. Woodson wrote a book called The Miseducation of the African. He actually said Negro, but the miseducation of the Negro. So we've got Carter G. Woodson to thank for Black History Month, because he started what's called Negro History Week in the 1920s or 30s, yeah? And a quote from Carter G. Woodson says, "The real servant of the people must live among them, think with them, feel for them, and die for them. I repeat, the real servant of the people must live among them, think with them, feel for them, and die with them. So I continue. It can be disheartening trying to be a true, uncompromising, dedicated, loving warrior when all about you, many of those claiming to be the like-minded are only practicing the art of deception in order to exploit your loyalty to your cause so they can selfishly enrich themselves and by that fact serve the master they decry as our enemy. We have a quick drink. So you're seeing that if you are dedicated to fight for your people, you need to worry about the people around you. Because some people, those people they want to be Europeans and they're your enemies. And as you remember before, the UNIA, Marcus Garvey's organization, back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, the FBI's first black agents were created to infiltrate the UNIA and destroy it. So sometimes you'll sit down with people and you think they're like-minded. They are not like-minded. So we always have to be careful. The Black Panther Party was full of FBI agents. One of the greatest leaders of the Black Panther parties, there was the chauffeur of one of them, gave the FBI the plans. So when they shot from outside the building, they knew where he slept. So we always have to be careful because the people sitting next to us are not necessarily our friends. We need to be wise. We need to learn from the mistakes of our ancestors. Those revolutionary nation-building, re-Africanizing Africans, excuse me, who take our goods and services and love with no intent of reciprocating are the enemy within. Those who know because they have read or studied or sat at the feet of deep-thinking Africans who use their familiarity with our way to gain advantage over their co-workers on the front lines of this war are no better than the Europeans. They call animals, which are an insult to animals. These corruptors will be with us until we return to power. They will be with us until we have rebuilt our minds, our commitment, and our nations to the point where they fear betrayal of Africans more than they desire the love of Europeans. That's deep. They know what we are, and they know what they are, and the ancestors know who they are. Reciprocal justice is the way of the universe. Those who have been deceived by Negroes masquerading as African warriors do not falter from deception. Do not let treason become an obstacle to their righteous victory. Know in yourself, for yourself, that the only true measure of warriorhood is action. Because we've got a lot of people today who are armchair warriors. They sit down and they tweet and they say that you should fill in this, sign this petition, but they don't do anything outside of their house. They do not organize. They do not create organizations. They do not create businesses. Everything is for self. Action is what's going to free us, not inaction and not tweeting. It's not going to free us. Only action. You know about the ADOS movement in the USA, and ADOS teach Africans to hate Africans because they say, well, we are African descendants of slaves. So their origin is to be a slave. That's the mindset they've got. And what they talk about is, oh, we hate Nigerians and Jamaicans. They come here and they want to do this. So ADOS teach Africans to be, teach to hate Africans to hate Africans. That's why the FBI must love them, because they're doing the FBI's job, dividing and conquering us. They know what they are, and the ancestors know who they are. Reciprocal justice is the way of the universe. Those who have been deceived by Negroes masquerading as African warriors do not falter from deception. They do not let treason become an obstacle to their righteous victory. Know in yourself, for yourself, that the only true measure of warriorhood is action. Thought is spirit. Word is bond. Deed is proof. Sift through the clay of the fertile ground. Plant yourself in the grains of rich black soil. that reciprocally nourishes your spiritual roots and strengthens the branches of our will as we reach out to battle the enemies of our children and our ancestors. Courage is the fruit of our decision to make in the heart. Courage is the fruit of a decision made in the heart. Let no confused African take away your birthright to be revolutionary. I'm going to read that chapter again. It's only 2 pages. Thought, word, and deed. And Carter G. Woodson quote at the beginning says, a real servant of the people must live among them, think with them, feel for them, and die for them. It can be disheartening trying to be a true, uncompromised, and dedicated, loving warrior when all about you, many of those claiming to be of like mind, are only practicing the art of deception in order to exploit your loyalty to cause or your cause so that they can selfishly enrich themselves and by that fact serve their master they decry as our enemy. Those revolutionary nation-building, re-Africanizing Africans who take our goods and services and love with no intent of reciprocating are the enemies within. Those who know because they have read or studied or sat at the feet of our deep-thinking Africans who use their familiarity with our way to gain advantage over their co-workers on the front lines of this war are no better than the Europeans that they call animals, which is an insult to animals. These corruptors will be with us until we return to power. They will be with us until we have rebuilt our minds, our commitment, and our nation to the point where they will fear betrayal of Africans more than they desire the love of Europeans. They know what they are, and the ancestors know who they are. Reciprocal justice is the way of the universe. Those who have been deceived by Negroes masquerading as African warriors do not falter from their deception. Do not let treason become an obstacle to their righteous victory, to our righteous victory. Know in yourself, for yourself, that the only true measure of warriorhood is action. Thought is spirit, word is bond, deed is proof. Sift through the clay for the fertile ground. Plant yourself in the grains of rich black soil that reciprocally nourishes your spiritual roots, and strengthens the branches of our will as we reach out to battle the enemies of our children and ancestors. Courage is the fruit of the decision made in the heart. Let no confused African take away your birthright to be revolutionary. Boom, fire. Okay, that's serious ones, yeah? It speaks about the Africans, traitors, treason makers in our midst, who pretend to walk the walk when they only talk the talk. And as I said, all African organizations since the 50s, doesn't matter where they are, they have traitors there. And because they love Massa so much, and maybe sometimes to do with that white image they have on the wall, they think is their creator, they see, as in Jamaica they were saying, they take white people as Jesus. Sometimes they see this image and take him as Jesus. They think that he's their God. And that's what they rather do for him than for themselves and for their people, because they've got self-hatred in them. So we need to look out for these traitors. People made promises to me, and these people call themselves Africans. And did the promise come true? And these people are in our midst. And some of our people are for the ego, and they're for themselves. They're not about revolution as they say they are. We always need to look out for them people, okay? Good. Okay, this is the Afrocentricity Bookman Show. We are reading a book called Menticide. It's a 2015 book, and it's by Walimu Bomani Baruti. As you have probably heard what I just read recently, it's got some powerful essays. It makes us confront things we don't want to talk about. Sometimes we want to take the easy route to understand things, but sometimes we've got to take the hard route, because that's the only way we're going to learn what is going down and see things we weren't even aware were happening around us, yeah? Okay. This next chapter is called Groundings with My Daughters. And I've got a quote here from Assata Shakur. Do we all know Assata Shakur's story? Assata, Assata, and Shakur, Shakur. Assata Shakur was locked up in the USA in a prison, and her brethren, Black Power, they released her out of the made her accept for the prison, and now she's in Cuba, and she's been in Cuba ever since. Because in the USA, for 30, 40, 50 years, 60 years, the political prisoners have been locked up there for 40 years for crimes they did not commit. And there's evidence that they didn't commit these crimes, and they're still locked up in prison. Mumia Jabal is still in prison for 40 years. He was a journalist, and he wrote about the racism and white supremacy and brutality of the police, and they fit him up, and now he's in prison. 40 years he's been there. So America used to like to tell people about how terrible certain countries are. They really need to look in the mirror, USA. There's many people. But Assata Shakur is an excellent biography about her. And when you read a biography, I might read it, as part of the book show, you find out how they treated her when the police arrested her. She was pregnant and they was beating her in the stomach. But luckily she escaped to Cuba. She's been safe ever since. Assata Shakur. Okay. A quote from her is, "Our desire to be free has got to manifest itself in everything we do, everything we are and do." Let me repeat that. Assata Shakur said, "Our desire to be free has got to manifest itself in everything we are and do." One quote I always remember from Assata Shakur is, "There's nothing to be scared of. Fighting for justice, we've got nothing to be scared of except for more chains." Let me continue. Grounders with my daughters. Young sisters, you must think deeply about the way of our ancestors. Those of ancient Nubia, Kemet, and the rest of our motherland surpassed all others in their wisdom and humanity. They are the ones who warned us about committing treason against the culture and tradition that make us African, lest we destroy ourselves. Remember that there is no separation of the past, the present, no divide between our historical interpretation and contemporary reality. Only when we are taught that the new is always better than the old, we are misled into believing that what happened to us is not connected to what is happening and will happen to us if we do not rise as a people. Let me repeat that. Remember, there is no separation of the past and the present. No divide between our historical interpretation and contemporary reality. Only when we are taught that the new is always better than the old are we misled into believing that what has happened to us is not connected to what is happening, or what has happened to us in the past is not connected to what is happening to us and will happen to us if we do not rise as a people. Only in the world where we believe we can run away from ourselves, from our people, from our truth, can we accept that a people's story has no bearing on the awareness, condition, and possibilities of its individuals. Young sisters, you must know that you are the one with our past. And you must know that you are our greatest stories and traditions lie far beyond these shores in both time and space. But more importantly, you must know that your being conscious of these two facts is so vital to our survival as a people. You are the new vanguard, our people's healers. Our story is a phenomenal record of African women. No other woman has been so loved, coveted, and envied for their strength and elegance. Their lineage determined whether a man could be the king, the pharaoh. The world's first divinities were female. The world's first female doctor, Preshet, was a chief physician, and she was an African woman, Kemetic woman. The world's first ruler of an empire, Hatshepsut, she was again, Kemetic woman. The warrior who, even after Europeans tried to break her spirit by kidnapping, torturing, beheading her sister, relentlessly led the Angolan armies in a fight against the enslavement of Africans and the Portuguese onslaught of 4 decades. The woman so feared by her white enemies that she was called the Black Terror. She was Queen Anazinga. And I hope you all know about Queen Anazinga. She fought the Europeans until she was about 92. She used to lead her people into war. She used to make the Portuguese fight through her manipulation. She used to make the Portuguese fight against Dutch. She was a brilliant mind, Queen Anazinga. Yeah, I'll speak to my brethren yesterday about her. The warrior queen named Sarunia, military defended her people against Islamic invasions at a time when states all around her were submitting to this forced conversion and relinquishing their African spiritual traditions. Queen Kandaki, who's called Queen Candice by some, was a European name. Queen Kandaki led her troops into battle against the invading forces of Augustus Caesar, the Romans. The remains of the world's oldest human belong to an African woman, Amaji, the Ethiopian. The list of your accomplishments on the continent alone is endless. Many are the names and deeds that we'll never know, but you can surmise because we know African women. Therefore, it should become as no surprise that our ancestral mothers' social position as equals with our ancestral fathers led other people's men, afraid to lose their patriarchal privilege, to suppress and brutalize their women, to keep them from aspiring to what African men accepted as normal for African women. Very good point there. I remember Dr. John Henry Clark says that African culture was the only culture where the African man was not scared of the woman, because the African man allowed the woman to rise to be the ruler of the whole nation. Name an Arabic woman, or a Roman woman, or a Greek woman who rose to power and ruled any nation. I'm here for another hour, so let me know. But African women, we can name them one after the other. It just shows you we've got a different culture. We've got a different culture. We cannot follow other people's culture. As I said to you earlier, man, we are the oldest people on the planet. 3,000-year-old culture, our culture is. But we want to adopt the culture of people who are really Johnny-come-lately people, who've only been around for 10,000 years or less. I continue. Okay, in being of themselves, ancestral African women had no difficulty taking up arms with their men against invaders. On the continent, they commanded armies, served as guards and spies and guerrilla and foot soldiers and archers. They became responsible for keeping the oral historical record when the men carted off to the slave plantations and mines. Let me say this, African women in the Haitian Revolution, 30% of the army were women. And the head of the security was a woman, I can't remember her name now. She used to protect Dessalines, for example. She had an army of spies in Europe, intelligence services, and she listened out and hear what's happening in Europe, and it was brought back to the Haiti to find out what's happening. She had an army of spies of different nations. This is the African woman. The African woman in the Haitian Revolution, they'd crawl up to the cannons, they'd put their baby into the cannon, so the cannon will misfire. And you may think, oh, how should you do that? But it's for sometimes liberation, man. We don't know what we need to do for liberation. Remember the African women on the station where it's being brought over, they jump over into the water with their child, because they knew that going back to the spirits of the water was better than this hell which we are living in currently today. So the African woman, we cannot deny the strength of the African woman. And we will not get liberation unless the African woman is by our side. We don't get no foolishness that behind every good man is a woman. That's European. Look at the sculptures and the carvings from Africa. The African woman is beside the African man. So we're only going to get liberation when we're standing by side. I'm just letting you know that. Yeah, I'm sure you know it already, but I'm just underlining it for you. So in being themselves, ancestral African women had no difficulty taking up arms with their men against the invaders. On the continent, they commanded armies, served as guards and spies, guerrillas, foot soldiers, and archers. They became responsible for keeping our historical record when the men were carted off to slave on plantation and mines. On the Kemetic Ocean, during the Middle Passage, they did no less. They were the eyes and the ears of our revolts. They dealt with our enemy as our men did. Enslaved or quasi-free in the Western Hemisphere and elsewhere, they did no less. Time and time again, they conducted enslaved Africans out of physical bondage. Harriet Tubman, in looking back over her life and thinking about the hundreds of Africans she had freed from physical bonds of enslavement, reflected how she could have freed thousands more if only they knew they were slaves. Sojourner Truth, making the point that African women did the work that supposedly only men were capable of, refused to accept being defied down to the level of European females. Her cogent question of, ain't I a woman, still rings as a wake-up call for our ears. Standing tall alongside the likes of Ida B. Wells, Mary McLeod Bethune, Fannie Lou Hamer, they withstood insults, taunts, water hoses, dogs and bullets. They spoke truth regardless of the consequences. They more than earned the honor of being named the first teacher and nurturer. Don't forget Nanny of Maroons as well. She used to lead her people in Jamaica against the British, destroy British armies, by the way. These various acts made them neither less than or more than the men. None of these responsibilities negated or confused their womanhood. They defined it. You are the daughters of these incredible mothers who gave birth to humanity, to cultivation, to civilization. You are the inheritors of a legacy beyond the imagination of most. So, young sisters, you must recognize who you are in order to see and begin to fulfill your responsibility as a woman of Africa. Only a clear understanding of our story through our people's eyes permits this. Any interpretation, anything less, fosters confusion. Simply because you are the being exposed to our story, you are very privileged. And privilege carries responsibility. And with it, you accept the difficult and humbling task of learning and teaching others so that your generation's liberating mission can be fulfilled and correctly passed on to future generations. It is because of your privilege that you have an undeniable responsibility to our ancestors, those around you, and those yet to come. There is nothing more or nothing so powerful as a young sister who knows who she is, who stands proudly on the shoulders of her ancestors, because she knows that she is a culmination of their wisdom and spirit. Nothing is more beautiful than a woman warrior in training who has studied her own before and above all others and interprets reality and society out of that truth first. I honor you, my warrior daughters, because of your power, beauty, and privilege. I charge you with the mission of helping our people empower ourselves, of giving us the choice of walking the way of our great ancestors. To help you fulfill this mission, allow me to act in a role of father, who in the tradition of our ancestors is every responsible man in the community. Let me pass on to my wisdom, common sense and expectations of what you should do, be, and not ignore in this callous, corrupt, predatory world. First, seek out higher education, not a higher miseducation. Exercise your mind to its fullest extent. Like a muscle, it is strengthened and honed through more intense exercise. Thinking of the mind's exercise, search for problems which will challenge it to explore deeper and higher solutions. Knowing that can't die before you were born, and that nothing you can visualize is impossible. Find and work with all your power towards serving or solving your people's problems. Know that some will say, you can't do anything. but will contradict themselves by saying, this particular dream is yours. This dream of building Africa's world is impossible. Nothing in this earth could be more gratifying and empowering than helping to liberate our people. A powerful people makes for a powerful individuals. Higher education, wherever you are intellectually or where you are at intellectually, is the key to this mental liberation. So he's saying, first of all, young women, and no doubt middle-aged and even older women, higher education, not higher miseducation. Seek that which makes your mind have to work to solve problems. Despite having dropped out of school barely in the 8th grade, returning only after many years of alcohol, drugs, and mindless play, I have committed myself to re-Africanization and nation building. I know that I am not smarter, more intelligent, or more powerful than you. I know that our ancestors and your ancestors' brilliance and resilience flows in your veins, so that you are capable of equaling and surpassing my work and that of your elders. Know that when we are speaking of higher education, we are talking not about credentials or classrooms. We are all idiots with PhDs, and we all know geniuses who could not punch their way out of a paper bag because they lack common sense. We all know and honor students who couldn't memorize chapters and books of information but could not think. My apologies. We all know and honor students who could memorize chapters and books of information but they could not think. Credentials and classrooms are useless unless they lead us towards consciously applying knowledge to improve the quality of our community. For us, education is significant when it is constructively applied by self-determining African warrior scholars towards their people's empowerment. Only fools with a genocidal death wish, nurture and protect others before their own family. Let me repeat that. Only fools with a genocidal death wish nurture and protect others before their own family. Our family should be the model we have provided for others to follow, not a joke for others' entertainment. If you want the reputation of a warrior scholar, then don't run from the challenges of intellectual warfare. Be African. Somebody said to me before, we can't be a slave and be African at the same time, because an African is not a slave. Second, think about the consequence of your sexual behavior. First, the advice here is simple. Don't be drawn into sexual relations without having a mature, clearly defined plan for the birth and rearing of African children. Do not engage in sexual behavior that is not reproductive because you assume that it will lead to disease. So you could assume that it will not lead to disease or sexual activity that leads to reproduction. Do not rush. Always think. And while thinking, bear in mind the fact that most males raised within the Western cultural context see females as sexual prey and toys, however kind their intent, however lovingly conveyed or oblivious they may be to their own predation, because they have fallen for their own confusion that every female is the one. If they love you, they can't wait. As the elders constantly remind us, it is not going anywhere. Third, understand the purpose of dating. You are searching for a complement. You are trying to locate someone who will work with you to build family, community, and nation. You're not playing a game of sexual roulette. Neither are you a piece on display in a meat market. Alexandre Dumas was right. A man's mind is elevated to the status of women he assaults with. That's deep. A man's mind is elevated to the status of the women he associates with. That being the case, there are things you must know before you make any serious decision. In this world, if we approach with open eyes, dating, with eyes open, dating can help you get those answers. You need to know what is the now doing in preparation to be what he says he wants to be? Is there a clear evidence of his vision in his work? Does he love himself and his people? Does he have a sense of humor? How well does he recover when he stumbles and falls? Does he lie, steal? Not lying or stealing wrong when others do it. Not seeing lying or stealing as wrong when others do it. Can he admit mistakes? How does he handle them? Are his gifts to you superficial, popular trinkets, regardless of monetary value? Or is the bulk of his giving based on what you need without you having to ask for it? Does he care about your health? Does he care about what high heels your feet do to your feet and your spine? And tight clothes and underwear cause health problems like poor circulation, yeast infection and worse. Does he really truly care about your mental and physical well-being? Does he protect his responsibilities with more than his mouth? When in your company, does he scan the environment looking for potential dangers? Or is he always so engrossed in your entire body of other females' bodies? Or is his confirmation that threats go unnoticed? Let me repeat that. Or his conversation that threats go unnoticed? Does he know of any our story? Does he read anything of substance? Is he what would you want your sons to be like? Spend some time getting these answers in what he does more than what he says. Do not expect to change him if he answers you and you get less than what you might expect. Look elsewhere. In their hearts, individuals are who they are. Find someone's worth you. Fourth, never marry a man who is not your friend. And friendship does not evolve in a few days. A friendship does not evolve in a few days, weeks, or months. Sometimes it requires years to develop friendships that are deep enough to truly know a person. Talk to elder couples you respect without friendship and marriage. Good. Repeat that. Talk to elder couples you respect about friendship and marriage. Find those common threads among these complements that have enabled them to endure the struggles of marriage together. Take their advice on relationships seriously. Above all, know that marriage is work and hard work. It takes hard work to build anything worthwhile. Marriage is a compromise and patience. It does not come easy, but it is well worth every emotional penny invested. And remember that time is the greatest predictor of success. The more time you invest in something, the better the outcome, product, and the larger the reward. Fifthly, you are what you eat, just as you are what you think. Work to replenish what you most need. And the best indicator of what you most need is what you most are. Humans are 75% water. Interestingly, the same percent of this planet's surface that is covered by water. Drink water and follow healthy diets. Remember, your temple comes first. If you seriously care about your body, read Queen Afua's Heal Thyself and Sacred Woman, Lady Africa's African Holistic Health and Nutricide, and Jethro Kloss's Back to Eden. Excellent point there, yeah? I know those books. I haven't got Queen Afia's book, but read Queen Afia's Heal Thyself, Sacred Woman, Lady Africa's African Holistic Health and Nutricide, and Jethro Kloss's Back to Eden. All about health. 6, stay as far away from drugs and alcohol as is humanly possible. If elders are here to teach the youth so that they will not make the same mistakes, then let the wisdom gained from my experience be your lesson. 20 plus years in a bottle and somewhere around $45,000 wasted on drugs and cigarettes has taught me that only you can free your mind. Nothing more artificial will help you feel, measure, and channel your creator. excuse me, nothing artificial will help you feel, measure, power to your benefit. Do not bring the enemy within, because once it's in, it may never leave. So it's talking about nothing artificial will help you feel, measure, and channel your creator-given power to your and our benefit. Do not bring the enemy within, because once in, it may never leave. Know yourself. Deeply study our story to know who you are. Our ancestors warned us that if you do not know who you are, any history will do. Just like you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. Being the combination of all of the Africans in your bloodline who came before you, in order to understand who you are, you must understand who they were. Daughters, do not fall for the amalgamist, sub-integrationist hype of the supremacist people desperate for security in the midst of those they have systematically sought to destroy. All people choose ancestors. Only the names of those deserving remembrance should be called. Rape under any physical, psychological conditions automatically disqualifies one from ancestral status. There should be no statue of either rape or murder. And if there is, there shouldn't be. Africans have no European ancestors. And last, but definitely not least, be your spiritual self. Know your ancestors. Call on them for guidance, protection, and power. Feel your power in spirit. And do not mindlessly submit to the deadening dogma of religion. Know and live by the principles of Ma'at, i.e. truth, justice, righteousness, order, balance, reciprocity, harmony, integrity. All the while remaining mindful that everyone around you is not African. Do not see them as words you must perfunctorily mumble, and allow the Creator to fully manifest in what you think and say you do. Be the African your ancestors meant for you to be. Be the African your ancestors meant for you to be. Boom. Grounded with my daughter. That was a powerful chapter for sisters, for women. You come from greatness, so you should remain to be greatness. And he spoke about don't just have sex, don't just take drugs, don't just fall for the first guy you see. Remember, you come from greatness, so great things are expected of you. And he also said, seek higher education, not higher miseducation. And he didn't just mean PhDs, because he said some people with PhDs can barely tie their shoes. You got these people who got lots of certificates and they can't even think. So you need to have a proper education. So if you need to find a mentor, and it says if you want to know about marriage, speak to people who are married. There's a book called The Richest Man in Babylon. And the concept of the book is that if you want to learn something, go to somebody who's done it. See, if I want to know about buying gold, I'm going to go to a dustman, ask a dustman about buying gold. If I want to learn about buying gold, I'll go to a gold dealer. If I want to know about diamonds, I'll go to a diamond seller, dealer, something like that. Diamond cutter to know about these things like that, yeah? So we need to go to, if we need a mentor in something, because in Kemet, our most ancient educational system, the children used to sit at the feet of the elders who knew things, and they used to teach them. They used to sit at the feet, and they would write. Sometimes when it's going to write, they'll write out like the history, or they'll write out the wisdom. So when he learned to write, they was learning, internalizing the wisdom because automatically. So if we need a mentor, we need to go to somebody. It's not wrong going to a mentor, because why remake the wheel if you know somebody who knows all about the wheel already? You haven't got to make it against yourself. So if you need to go to somebody to learn stuff, go to somebody who knows. Don't go to your mate, I think I know about that. I read a book about it once. Go to somebody you know who knows how to do it. So the women, a long line. Now, another chapter we read was that there are traitors out there. Be careful people who sit next to you and may parry, yes, I hate this and I'll do that and I'll do that. and these people could be your enemy. We need to think about who we're sitting with there. All of our greatest organizations have been infiltrated. Why? Because the people infiltrated it, number one, they've probably got a very low self-esteem, so they've got self-hatred, and also they love their oppressor more than they fear Africans themselves, what Africans may do to them, but they got caught out, being a traitor, treacherous. So always be careful of the people around you who you think who are your friends. And also, we spoke about self-serving spirituality, going, seeking religion instead of fighting for truth and justice. Parroting maybe the 10 Commandments, where you don't actually do things in the street. Remember the 10 Commandments, it does not say, do not lie, by the way. In the 42 laws of Ma'at, it says, do not lie, I have not lied. Remember the 10 Commandments says, I have not given false witness against my neighbor, which means that if somebody's not my neighbor, then I can lie, I can put full witness. We need to really go back to our ancestral line. Our ancestors did everything we need to know. Culture changes. So culture, we don't need to adopt some old parts of culture which is not relevant today, but the root of our culture is the greatest culture you can think. It tells a man how to do with women, how the women how to do with man, children, the planet, animals, the world, how to treat each other. So we really need to go back to our own culture so we get the best. But a lot of wisdom in this book from our ancestors, yeah? So look out for people who say you're your friends. Women, take care of yourself, because you are the genie in the bottle. You are something very sacred and very special. Protect yourself, educate yourself, seek wisdom. And we need you. Forget liberation. We need the women beside us as well. And spirituality. We shouldn't use false religions. But if you're in a religion, you should need to use that religion to free. There is something called revolutionary Christianity. So you use your religion to empower you to get freedom, not as to love everybody, to love your enemy. Who loves their enemy? If I love my enemy and he kills my family, what am I going to do? I'm going to hug him because my family? I spoke about that guy who went into that church in South Carolina. Because they just let the guy come into the church. They thought maybe he was Jesus, maybe. And he shot them. After praying with them, he killed them. And one of the sad things, always remember that, before they buried some of the killed women, there was many women killed, elders, their children were saying, I forgive you, I forgive you. So where did they learn that from? Where did they learn that they forgive the people who murdered their mothers and fathers in cold blood? They learned that from that religion that our oppressor gave us. So when they murder us, we accept them and we love them and hug them when they murder us. When Britain was attacked, did Britain say love him? When USA was bombed, did they say let's love these people? Or did they bring justice on them? We need to bring justice. When somebody does wrong to us, we need to bring justice. Because if we love our enemy, they'll kill my son, I love them. They kill my daughter, I love them. They kill my mother, I love them. They're going to keep killing until they reach me and I'll be dead as well. We cannot love our enemy. We need to think about what we're doing. Because these people continue to kill us. It's only when they realize that there's going to be a reaction from us when they kill us is when they're going to act. So, as it says, we must go back to our African self, because that's what's going to save us. Go back to African culture, African spirituality. That is what saves us, okay? So we're at 6 o'clock now. I love you guys bad. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll continue next week reading Menticide by Walimu Bomani Baruti. Some more, about another maybe 8 or so essays to go, yeah? So have a great week. Stay safe. And I love you bad, yeah? You take care, yeah? One love. Blessings.